You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast, and so excited to have GLÜME on the show. Welcome onto the podcast, GLÜME.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really excited. Been really digging on your music. Newer release, Main Character. I enjoyed the vibe of it. I enjoy your singing is kind of dreamy, you know. So I really dig on that. But you're also not only, you know, as a performer, artist. You're also heading up a record label, and that's something you're working hard on really now for an upcoming launch. I was kind of wondering about like what's going on with that and what you're trying to do.
Well, I was going to I left my previous label and I was looking around and talking to other people at other labels. And in the meantime, in the interim, I was trying to figure out how to get by financially. And I had made a GoFundMe to get back from Paris to Los Angeles. And I was pretty tired of making GoFundMes. And so I was like, I think I'm going to make one of those OnlyFans, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that did way better than I thought. And so much better that I realized this isn't like shopping money. I need to like invest this into something that matters. Um, and so I started talking to my friends and everyone that I work with and my whole team. And everyone just kind of jumped on board, and everyone I knew just came out of the woodwork and they're like, well, I want to work there. I want to do this. I'd like to do this there. And so suddenly I just had this whole staff of people at this record label I just imagined up. And um, it's been really exciting. And we're talking to some pretty exciting artists. And we will be launching in January, February. We are very vocal about the fact that it is powered by porn or funded by it, because there's a lot of trouble, especially indie labels, of making money and artists making money. I think everyone's just hoping to break even at best a lot of the time. And I think giving out small but substantial advances, and then having, an artist in debt just enough to make it where they can't make it back from like the small amount of syncs you get at an indie label. It's not like you're at Interscope and they're just like, you're on Euphoria right now. um you just, it's just like this thing, you get stuck and you're like, wait, well, I don't have time for a job, I can't work at Starbucks,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm touring all the time. And that's not paying, because that's paying back the advance, and there's just this model. And I think it works a little better if you blow up on like a major and you're, Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo. I mean, Taylor Swift she just re-recorded all her music. So there's problems everywhere. But um, at the label I'm doing, I'm kind of treating it more of like it's like the contract would be more, I think you would say, a management contract where I take like 15-20%. But it's different where it's a label, because I'm funding it with the adult film that I do and paying for publicity, tour support, etc. And I think personally, on an indie level, artists are working their themselves to the bone, and they're sharing, they're sharing like everything that they have, and their
Yeah.
music is coming from the depths of them, and it's all of this stuff, and then they're not really like getting anything out of it other than sharing it. And so I don't feel comfortable taking their masters. I don't feel comfortable taking like half of everything, because I honestly didn't create, I didn't do anything to create the product. And as an indie label, and as I've seen other indie labels, I'm not going to change their life enough to take away the thing that they made and that they should own. And if I do, that's great, everyone's happy. But I don't know, I'm not like, I guess, feeling like so much greedy in this, as much as I just want to see people and artists win. And if some like major comes along and they find an artist on my label that they love and they just pay a bunch of money and change their lives, that's great. I'll be thrilled. That would be amazing. So I know a lot of people um who have been burned, and I'm talking to an artist right now who's a really big artist that just left a major, and they're talking between me and Warner Brothers. And it's
Well,
funny
that's
because
nice convo, or at least the frame of the convo, you
yeah,
know?
it's just kind of funny that anyone would be deciding between me and Warner Brothers. I
Good,
think it's just
good.
because they're tired. I think they're very tired of the like you know, I think that the idea of making money off of music right now is really it's a complex thing and it's a really scary conversation a lot of people don't want to have. I know a majority of my friends who do music secretly do sex work on the side to support themselves, and most people just think they're making music off touring, and it's it's really like they keep saying, oh, the industry is different than it used to be, and it just keeps happening every 6 months, every year. You keep being like, wow, it's really not working even more.
Yeah,
And so yeah, I decided to start this label and fund it from something completely different
yeah.
and pay for the PR, pay for the billboards, pay for the tour, whatever, from this website that welcomed me generously. And I'm pretty
No
happy to
kidding.
do
No kidding.
it. And yeah, so I'm pretty excited, and it's kind of fun to talk about, and people's eyes pop out when you try to explain your business to people at parties, and um but I think that's fun, and I think I also think I spent so much of my time with other people monetizing my sexuality and selling me as like a sexual thing, and I'd like to make the money in my bank account from that if anyone's going to. So,
Yeah, like the not to I mean, like, it's like the direct link, and I don't know, I'm thinking of it in the sense of, within music and in the radical changes of being able to be paid and the type of models of maybe doing a label like you do or Bandcamp, right? Where there's this idea at least that there's a direct transmission of support. And
yeah,
when OnlyFans, I mean, the same type of mechanism where it's a direct transmission of patronage, support, payment.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I get fans on there and they'll talk about my album for a while, and they'll go on like, oh, I really like this song, I like this song. And then they'll be like, can you take a video of yourself in the shower? And then they'll offer $100. And I'm like, okay. And it's just such a strange, it's like, but it's like such a wholesome interaction. And then they request that. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good price. And so,
Yeah. I was talking I was thinking about the label, and it's really kind of cool. I released an episode today with Pieta Brown, a folk singer, and she's on Righteous Babe, Ani DeFranco's record label, and I had such a conversation. And it was really I didn't I'm not a musician. I haven't been in the industry, but I've heard so many of the artists I interviewed talk about the experience of like the label, of like artist support, of people just trying to expropriate from artists,
yeah,
or like an ethos. And so I was excited to hear about like the ethos that you were talking about, of like how you're trying to do it because of a connection between making great art and getting paid for that
yeah,
art and not being fleeced.
exactly. I want,
Yeah.
if they get a really big sync on television, I want them to get a really big check. And
It's a different idea though, it seems,
yeah, it's a weird idea to think that, yeah, pay them.
Well, I think one of the things is, so I've done this podcast, and it's like over 200 episodes. And I think one of the interesting pieces for me as the host is I do different things, but I'm a labor organizer, union guy, and I have this whole art side that I developed. But what I find interesting is when I talk to artists, like I have a knowledge and a passion or interest about what they're doing, but I have no skin in the game. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like I just really like to find, like I'm really excited about your music, and I'm like, oh, I would like to talk to GLÜME. And I think the competition, or the way the industry that you have to operate in it, you kind of have to have an eye on folks and being like, all right, which piece of me is somebody trying to get, and just having a conversation about like there's no angle,
Yeah.
or like let's be upfront and like let's support each other
Yeah, exactly.
collectively or something.
I think that it promotes a really good environment for everyone to succeed because everyone's motivated because everyone's getting something out of it. And it also promotes an environment where instead of being like a toxic like family, like I know like I've been at workplaces where they're like, "Oh, it's family," and you always read online like that's a huge red flag. Don't say you're family. Like say you're a cult before you say you're a family. Um, and so I think
Interesting.
like
Yeah.
with my friends that you know I'm working with and artists that I'm working with, like I just want to see them do really well, and I believe in them and I believe in their music, and I hope that I'm able to take them to another level that I've figured out how to get to, that I kind of know the pathway to, at least for them to at least give them a boost and give them an opportunity to have their shot. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do that that are artistically inclined because it's such a different part of the brain. I think I'm kind of a weird person because I started working when I was, you know, 6 years old, and I've been considering finances and mortgage since I was 6 years old. I still think about my family and making sure that they're okay every month. And now, if they get money, they don't know it's coming from OnlyFans, but it is. And uh, they don't need to know that, but they're okay, and that's the important part. And but my mind has always been wrapping my head around how to do things with business, so I've always been able to kind of try to figure out how to get, you know, how to open doors without having been grandfathered in by a family member or nepotism or some sort of thing where I'd obviously just be like welcomed. But like, you know, kind of weaseling my way in from like growing up in Artesia and having nothing. But knowing that I have something to offer artistically and knowing I have something to offer in terms of like a personality and like a performer, but knowing that I also have to figure out the business of it because I don't have anyone doing that or holding my hand. And so I had to figure that out pretty young. And so I don't think my brain would have maybe like naturally done that had it not been like a um, make it or break it thing. Like my parents kept, you know, kept having evictions and things like that. And so it became like a survival thing where I had to figure out how to make money when I was really at a formative age. And so I think, am I naturally like a business person? I'm not sure. I know that both of my parents are not. They're very, you know, they just want to read books and write books and just, you know, philosophize and, you know, they're not money minded. And I get it. I would love to just run into a field in Versailles and read, you know, Proust and just ignore the whole thing. But I do have to pay for dinner and I do have to pay my rent. And so it's always been kind of a struggle because that part of me that writes songs and writes films and whatever doesn't want to do the other things. Like, no, I just want to be free. And then there's the
And
other part of me that's like, you have to get up and get in the office and return all of those emails, or
yeah,
else you're screwed. And so I have a really good way in figuring out a way of navigating things that I think probably must have come from child acting. Like everyone thought with my last album, we had incredible people. We had Rufus Wainwright, Shauna Lennon, Starflecker of Montreal.
incredible, incredible.
And that was literally just me sending out cold emails that I tried to make sound decent enough that they would respond to them.
Good for you. Good for you.
And they did. And everyone thinks like, oh, like who hooked that up for you? And I'm like, I did. And I found their management, and then I found this email, and then I found this.
That's all I ever. I totally get that. I want to. In doing the show, I referred like a pivotal thing happened to me, and I never expected it. Was Amanda Palmer's book, The Art of Asking,
Yes.
and
Yeah, I know that book. Yeah.
well, there's a million reasons it blew me away, but like I had a tendency, as a philosopher, I'm from the East Coast, maybe a bit brash, like
Yeah,
asking questions, but there was
me
this,
too.
yeah, cool, like, but there was this additional like piece in Amanda Palmer where I see such bravery and such like she would talk about being, you might remember being like as a human statue in like Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's raining out and she's there for hours and just like doing it, just trying to get through and to make it, and the courage that was built up, like you asking those, it's like the art of asking. It's like, I'm gonna ask the question and I'm gonna look stupid as fuck sometimes, but go for it.
Absolutely. I think I lost the feeling of embarrassment, or that got knocked out of me in somewhere in elementary school. Because when you do auditions every day, and they're just like, okay, now cry, now dance, now
Oh my
you're gonna act
goodness,
like you have
yeah.
a crush on this guy, but then you're gonna walk out sobbing, and then, okay, thank you, bye. Like your embarrassment threshold just starts going down, and you're just like, honestly, I don't give a fuck. And so I think like the worst thing that can happen is that they say, I don't want to work with you. And okay, that's fine.
No, I'm
And so
the
I mean literally that's the worst thing that's gonna happen to you. I think like rejection is just who cares? Like you're gonna end up kind of um making it in yourself anyway if you don't ask. You're gonna make this weird feeling of like, oh, they wouldn't have wanted me.
you're gonna fill up the narrative in an
Exactly. You're gonna make an
unpredictable way.
either way. You're gonna feel bad. You
Mhm.
might as well just make noise and see if see if they say yes. And if they say no, or if you don't ask, you're gonna feel the same. So at least with one there was an option of a yes.
All right.
Um,
We're definitely preaching to each other right now. Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think that's really cool. Like one of the coolest stories I have in doing the podcast for 4.5 years is I've gotten written no's from Joan Jett twice. So fuck you. I got 2 no's from Joan Jett. No other people have 2 no's. So I was like,
exactly.
and next year I'm gonna send it again, and I'm gonna say,
Exactly.
I still want to
Send it
talk to you,
again.
Joan, because I love you.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I got one no on the album, but it was a next one. I'll do the next one. I'm just out of town.
Oh, it was even a
And so
even
I
a
didn't even feel that bad.
no.
Yeah.
You're batting 1,000. So stick with that, and you're gonna have 3 swings and misses, and you're gonna be okay with those, or maybe they'll all come in, right?
I don't
So
even think about it. I mean, think about it when you grow up, you go on thousands of auditions, you get several sometimes. Like think about the ratio of no's.
oh gosh,
So it's just like you just don't you eventually you go to the audition and you forget that ever happened. Like the second you walk out the door, you're like, I don't know. What did I do today? I'm not sure. Because if you like dwell on it, you're gonna be the saddest child. And so I think like I just don't think like I'll just send stuff out. I'll just oh, this could be a cool thing, and then I just kind of forget about it. And then if it comes back to me and it's like, hey, we like this idea, I'm like, oh wow, that is so cool. I forgot I sent that. And then
yeah.
on top of it, like you know the the like blessing that I've gotten from behaving in the way of being choosing to be brave has created such incredible relationships and mentorships that I don't think I would ever have from like where I came from in life and who I know and what I was. And like I had a really hard day the other day and I shared about it in my story. I like cried. And I sometimes I'll check with my PR and be like, sorry. And they're like, no, that's okay. So vulnerable. Love it. But I got messages from people I really look up to, some of the people I collaborated with on the album, and they were like these long messages of just encouragement, and I was just like, they're like real. They're like real. They're just like friends that like actually care. Like, I thought, you know, you don't want to presume. Like, it's just like, for all I know, yeah, we collaborated. I'm already
Yeah.
honored.
Yeah, sure.
And then when they take interest in your life and they're like, no, let's be friends. Like, I'm just like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I think Rufus Wainwright, he was on tour for a while and he got back in town and he asked me to come have lunch at his house. And I was like, what do you mean? Um,
Yes,
I had
Rufus.
like posters
Yes,
on the wall
yes,
of
yes, Rufus.
poses. And then he asked for me to sing with him at a show at the Ace Theater in March. They're doing this musical, and there's like this duet number between him and a girl, and he asked me to do it, and I was just like, wow. Like, if I had never sent that email 2 years ago to be on my album, like, this is
Awesome.
crazy. And so I just, yeah, I think like the worst thing that's going to happen is people say no, but people say no to us all the time. Like, I get more anxiety checking out at a grocery store than most other crazy fucking things that I do. Like, the things that I ask, the things that I do, the performances I do, the costumes I wear, the videos I send on OnlyFans, no concern. Then I go, I'm in the line at Trader Joe's and I'm like, oh my God, they're in such a hurry and I'm not putting my change away fast enough. like, it's so, I don't know. I grew up like, I only know like performance and entertainment. And then you like put me out in the world and I'm like,
Yeah, so it's like, hey, I'm not too worried of asking this a phenomenal musical artist in the world and trying to get that, but the person behind me is getting angry at me
it's
because
stressing me out. Yeah, exactly.
so there we are. Okay, I want to say I did see maybe on Instagram there you mentioned Twin Peaks.
Yes.
And so when you see somebody else who drops into that and so I was so excited because one of the pieces I thought of, or I made a connection in my head, was that I saw you in that world. And let me just describe it a tiny bit, not to be like coy or strange or anything, but when I was listening to your music and seeing your style and hearing the sounds, I was in like a combination of like 80s and 90s kind of like soft, like maybe a little bit of like space rock, Hollywood, and some pop and some of the gloss and Mulholland Drive and
Mm-hmm.
a Lynch woman and the style and the shot. So I saw it and all that, and then you're talking Twin Peaks. So tell me why do you love Twin Peaks? Tell me about Twin Peaks.
Okay, so I first got into Twin Peaks a long time ago, but before I got into it at all, everyone always said, "Oh, that's very like David Lynch." Like, all these things that I did or made or songs or outfits or like just styles. It was like people would be like, "You're very Lynchian" or whatever, and I was like, "What does that mean?" And so
Yeah,
then
yeah,
in high school, I was like, "Okay, I'm watching this show." And I was like, okay, that's a fair that's a fair assessment. I get what happened here.
yeah.
And I don't know David, but I do know that miraculously he knows of me and one song of mine, and that's all, I can die happy right there. But he loves this song. This is from, it's like a doo-wop song called Come Softly to Me. And so we recorded him like a more modern version of that. And that was the coolest thing ever. But I have loved David Lynch since I was a teen. And I I don't know. I think there's something whatever weird, because like, and I found something out that he was gonna make, and I was trying to make the same thing before I ever knew he was trying to make it, and then I was like, okay, like that's it. Like I feel like I don't know what happened there with like our upbringings and what formed us to think these things, but he was trying to make this movie called Venus Descending, and it was based on the life of Marilyn Monroe, and it was which was based on this book called Goddess.
Yeah.
And he was going to change their name to Rosalind Ramsey, and JFK was Philip something. And it was on Warner Brothers, and they were very excited about it. And then all of a sudden, they, you know, they knew he was going to do, suggest that Marilyn was murdered, and then that was fine. And then suddenly it wasn't, and the production was scrapped. And there's a lot of like mystery and speculation about that. So then he went in to do, and he made Twin Peaks, which was the like suburban, like very vague telling of the story he wanted to tell, in this very abstract way.
Yeah.
And so he just went and took what he was going to do, which was very straight, well, not very straightforward. It's David Lynch, but, more straightforward. And he made it even more, confusing so that no one could ever point back to that. And I think eventually was honest about it, but he always said that everything he did had to do with, it was always about Marilyn Monroe. And I grew up with a weird upbringing. My mom was a lot like Marilyn Monroe's mom, and she would, have these scares, and we'd end up picking her up at a mental institution because she didn't, want to live, and we were always trying to keep her happy, and always this kind of fear that she was gonna, she talked about suicide a lot, and would end up in mental institutions. And I thought that I was a total freak in high school for like all of that, like having to, like every time I, would go to like, there would be like a 5150 thing, and I'd end up with like some hospital in their like psych section. And I could never tell friends like at school about that. I would just be like, or like if I was in school that year, I still wouldn't even tell like my actor friends about it on set. Like, I just felt like a total freak. And then my therapist, who luckily I had for 15 years, she was 6 to graduation.
Yeah.
Because I think my dad was like, we need like another girl lady in here. And that's really good. And that I'm really glad. But she gave me a Marilyn Monroe book, and she said, I asked her one day, like, I don't have a female role model. I don't know how to be a woman. I don't know what that's like. I'm such a tomboy. And she said, well, she's like, that's how Marilyn Monroe's life was, but she turned out to be the biggest female icon of all time. And it was like, immediately I was like, I went from freak to I am glamorous. Oh my gosh. Like, I have the same life as Marilyn Monroe. The glam, I felt suddenly I was just like, oh, I'm just a tortured, beautiful, like, it was just this whatever, like, messy teen version of the takeaway of that was. But then I eventually, like, matured with the idea of that, and got a better handle on what she was suggesting. But I was so obsessed with Marilyn because I felt like, okay, this is the only person that existed that like understands me. And then like I also had some weird stuff on my dad's side. My grandfather worked on Apollo 11, and I know that he knew the Kennedys. And so between my mom and my dad, and there was the drama on with that, which I will not get into because I'm not interested in getting murdered. I just felt like, gosh, there's like so much here. I feel like I just relate to this lady so much when I was a kid. And so I was Marilyn obsessed. And then I thought, like, God, I think that it's so sad how much we've misunderstood her and what happened and what, like, very obviously happened. And then I wanted to make an album about it. I was about to make an album. Um, and then someone told me, "Oh, you have to look at this movie that David was going to make called Venus Descending. It's the album you want to make based on the same book you're basing your album on." And I was like, "God damn it."
Wow.
And then I found out that's where he pivoted and made Twin Peaks, and I was like, I just think that makes total sense, and it's like no wonder I'm Twin Peaks obsessed, because that was probably just so aimed at my brain.
There's wow,
I was his full target audience.
there's so much here, and I know you'll indulge some of this. I don't know how much, but one thing about Marilyn Monroe, ever since I was a little kid. So I'm 51, born in 72. I was born exactly 10 years after she died.
Okay.
Like exactly to the day.
Yeah.
10 years. So like when I was a little kid, like I was always like fascinated by women and like loved to look pictures at women. And Marilyn Monroe was like, wow,
Yeah.
like, and but was pretty interesting even as a young kid, growing up in the 80s and stuff. Like I read some of the biography stuff. Like I was immediately super intrigued at being like, wait a second, there's a lot going on with her. Like
Yeah.
once you start looking. And one piece is I wanted to tell you, because I noticed some of the Marilyn Monroe, like the themed videos that you had, was the first thing I thought of. I adore. I'm a huge Truman Capote fan, and his interview with Marilyn in Music for Chameleons called "A Beautiful Child." It's an
Oh,
interview
yeah.
that he did, and it's just it's such a beautiful, like, human
Yes.
type of work. And with Capote's poetry, and she comes in and she's a bit sloppy,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
very human and real. It's a beautiful piece. But when I thought of it, I was like, I got to remember to bring up Truman Capote and Music for Chameleons. So
Oh, yeah. Well, she's interesting, right? Because she had a very, very high IQ, but she also didn't have like higher education, and was very aware of that and self-conscious about that. And so she was always reading, and people always thought that was for publicity, but I think she knew that she was a force to be reckoned with in her, like deep within her, because she knew she was a very intelligent person. But then I think all these men were just like, "Oh, you were an orphan. Like, what do you know?" And back then she couldn't be like, well, I have an high IQ, and they tested me in high school and I got a grant. But
yeah,
they didn't really think about that at the time. They just kind of wanted like what was on paper, and she didn't have that. And so she would just crave learning and knowledge and growing, just always being teachable. And so she was very interesting, because sometimes she would say things that sounded very like yeah, like you said, messy or like kind of sloppy. And then sometimes she would say things that you're like, whoa, like that is so, like, how
oh
did
yeah,
that just come to mind? Like, and so you could see the kind of like that thing there where she has this brain, this mind that's incredible. I think she had a higher IQ than Einstein, but then she had this life where no one cultivated that for her, and so she did that, tried to do that for herself as she was an adult, and it made for just a very interesting human. And
oh yeah, yeah.
I think I had like a pretty weird like schooling experience. Like I can't, like, math is not like at my label. That's not my job. The someone else,
That's
someone else.
fine. That's why other people do the other
Yeah,
thing.
that's not what I'm here for. We have someone else for that. But I my dad did philosophy, and so homeschooling, I did philosophy classes, and I did one class in 5th grade on the study of iconography, what makes an icon. And in 5th grade, I really needed to know that.
In
And
5th grade?
4th grade was me. I don't know. I can't. I think I accomplished something else in 4th grade, but what really stood out is that I figured out Judy Garland's vibrato that year. Which is a very particular vibrato, and I needed to figure that out that year. I think I'd seen like a community theater production of Wizard of Oz, and I was like, that didn't sound like Judy, and it really bothered me. And I was like, how did she do it? Her vibrato is different. She has different vibrato than most musical theater people, and I had to figure it out. So I spent like a year with a voice teacher. Like, I don't know. I did some school, and but my dad was really focused on, like English, history, philosophy, and also like, so he was a counselor and he was a pastor. And so, well, he was a disgruntled, had quit pastor because I think he was too liberal for the church. And so he had a mixed bag with that. I think he still has the Bible close to his heart, but very angry at the politics. And and so I can respect that. But he's a really cool guy, and he a very unusual guy. You normally, when you hear like, and he was a pastor, you're like, oh. But he's a, I don't know. I think I got some of my personality, and definitely a lot of my personality, from his dad, my grandfather, the guy who worked at NASA. I mean, he started from nothing, went to was a car salesman, and then he was really high up on the Apollo 11 mission. And I feel like that's a really awesome jump.
Yeah.
And he must have really, figured some shit out. And I feel like I get that.
Yeah.
But my dad, he's like, just picture Steve Martin, and that's all you need, really.
Wow.
Like, he's just that, he's like that funny, and like not like a downgraded, like I'm being honest,
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, like, he knows he's a charming fellow. He's actually like that funny. He's very intelligent, and I don't know, very witty. It's just in the family, everyone's a funny person. But we focused on philosophy, we focused on literature, we focused on history, and we focused a lot on character development. That was like a very big part of school, which I thought was normal. But my dad really cared. Like, if I came in and I was like, I hung out with Sarah, and like she said this and da da da, and he'd be like, well, is that like the right way to handle that though? Because he's like, well, how did Sarah feel? And I'd be like, what do you mean? And then we'd have to talk about it, and I'd sit down and I'd be like, well, Sarah was really looking forward to blah blah blah, and I would be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll be back, I'm gonna go apologize to Sarah. And like, it was like,
Yeah.
it was so weird, because I thought that was just so normal. But then I see a lot of parenting where like kids just act like little shits, and their parents are like, I don't know. And
Yeah.
and I'm really glad that he did not. I was not allowed to be. Yeah, we had empathy or else. And so,
cultivated character.
it was a very pressured empathy. And so, yeah, like, I mean, no, I think I probably just like got a lot from him, because he's very caring and wants to help people. But sometimes I feel like no one is perfect, and I sometimes feel like I bite off more than I can chew in terms of like what I have to learn boundaries, and I can help, I can help with that, and then I'm just like, okay, now everyone's going to be mad at me because I said yes to too many things, and I can't come through. And so it's like, that's always my lesson, is just like, you have to say no sometimes when people are like, hey, you seem really nice, will you do this for me? And I'm like, actually, I did have plans today.
You did it in practice with me. Good on you.
Yeah, and it was hard, but it's hard. And I definitely, like, I think I had a big scandal recently on Reddit where I was scamming a lot of people. There were like two people, and two of the accounts I think I know were personal people that knew me who didn't end up getting to date me. So there was some personal. I think it had nothing to do with my Depop account, but there were like a couple of orders that I was trying to figure out like what happened because I was looking at my Depop. Like, there was a Reddit forum. Like, she's a scam artist. She's selling all these vinyls. She's not sending them to people. Yeah, she's a swindler, just like her old label. And I was just reading this and I was like, oh no, this is bad. And I looking at my Depop account for like angry messages or people being like, I didn't get it. And I just had like all 5-star reviews of people being like, got it really quickly. It was packaged well. Great love of the record. And I was like, okay, well, where's this happening? And so like I posted on my stories, if you haven't gotten anything in the mail, please message me. And no one, like I heard from one person.
Nothing. Okay.
And then they deleted their Instagram account. And I was like, well, I don't know how to help you. And so that was one of the things where I was just like, okay.
That's just psychological harm.
I was like, okay, next time we do sales, I'm going to do it with people who know how to do sales and shipping and packaging. And because I'm pretty sure everyone got everything I sent. But
I have the sense that they probably did, and you spent a lot of time making sure that was the case too. Right?
I did, and I left like little lipstick marks on all of the things.
I didn't.
I
didn't know that. I didn't know that. Okay.
But I just was like, okay, like we're overextending. And so this one girl actually, she messaged me and she's like, oh, the one I said didn't come. It finally came in the mail and you had refunded me, but it just took a while. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad you got it. That makes me so relieved because I thought something was going on with the place I was mailing stuff out of. It wasn't a post office. It was like a mailing store. And she's like, no, I got it. She's like, it just took a while. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad to hear it. She's like, well, how do you want me to pay you? And I was like, just have the album. It's been a long day with people. And I was like, you just take one. And then because she had my return address, because I was just, I didn't have an office yet. So there's like 30 people in the world who know where I live. And I hope they're all nice. And she mailed me back $30 cash. And I was like, no, I insist on you taking this because of this album, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, that's so kind. Like, I really just wanted her to have it because it took so long for it to come. And then she wrote me this really like nice letter, and it made the whole Reddit thing better. And I was like, okay, that feels way more like accurate to my experience.
Let's clear the whole record here. No, it's nice to talk to you about the Twin Peaks and Lynch stuff. No, I saw you. I'm like, she sings at the Roadhouse. There's no fucking way she doesn't sing at the Roadhouse. You just see you singing at the Roadhouse, like the Chromatics and 9 Inch Nails and just that set moving scene. And there you are. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the ultimate dream, is to sing at the Roadhouse. Absolutely.
Absolutely. all I need to do is dance. I just need to dance at the Roadhouse or start a bar fight, whatever, the end scene of somebody starts throwing the punch at the end of the episode.
There was, speaking of asking, I emailed David Lynch's producer because I had found it through someone I used to work with at Disney when I was a child. And I was like, hi. And I didn't have any like music out yet, but I was like, I really want to work if he does like another like return thing. I was like, here's my headshot, here's like some demos, blah blah, and then
go after, yeah.
And she was like, thank you, I'll keep them on file. And I was like, when my music was doing better and I knew, I was like one step away from David in several directions of people, I was like, oh, I want to email her again. But someone I was working with at the time was like, don't do it. And I was like, oh. But now that I'm not with them, she might be getting another email. So
I think it's so funny because some of your art ideas and pursuits that move aggressively, I think you just ended up being subject to some of the same tactics from me of being and like you're like it was probably like I'll do the show because he seems to be approaching me the way that I would approach
I
somebody
know.
somebody else.
I know.
Uh, Now, I want to ask you a question about David Lynch. Have you ever read or listened to the biography of David Lynch that was written by somebody, and he responds in each alternating chapter to the chapter that was written about his life story?
Wait, what was that?
So the book is, I think it's a place called like, it's a biography, and it's called Close to Home. So the way it's done is that the author tells about an event or David Lynch's life, and in the ensuing chapter, David Lynch responds to it with like maybe this is what actually happened or this is my take
Oh,
on
I've
it.
not read that.
Oh, so this is why I'm asking you, because I listened to it, and David Lynch does the reading of his own chapters, that the ones that are after the biographer. And I want to tell you this because it's one of the funniest things I ever listened to. Is there's this long chapter the author is describing David Lynch in high school, right? And done this research, and this is what he did, and this is what he did. It goes on for 5-10 minutes, and then you're waiting, and it cuts over to David Lynch, kind of like in big long chapter, and all you hear is, "I fucking hated high school." And I lost my shit listening to it because I'm ready for, 20 minutes, the authoritative version of like what high school was for me. And it's like, I fucking hated high school. And I was like, I lost my shit. It was the most unexpected shortest chapter since like Faulkner. I was like, oh my goodness, this is
That's
incredible.
amazing. Honestly, same. Oh,
Uh,
David wasn't meant to go to have the hierarchies of high school and the ASB and the jocks,
I
and
reckon,
it's
I
not meant
reckon
for
not.
David.
Hey, I want to ask you, Gloom, about a question I'm really interested in hearing your opinion on, about Lynch's women, right? Like, there's like complicated debate, because in his movies, uh, they tend to focus on the prominent, powerful, persevering woman, but women also tend to be the targets of bad events or violence, and sometimes in a way that's really harsh. So there's like a complicated relationship within the film of Lynch. What do you think about it? What do you see in Lynch's work
Well,
when it comes to that?
he talks about how I think it all comes back to that formative thing where he was making that movie with Mark about Marilyn, but he said it was a, I don't remember where the quote was from, but he said that he was telling a story of a girl in trouble, and
Yes.
so I think like I don't know, I don't know David, and I I don't want to presume, it could be absolutely wrong, but as an artist myself, um, one who's also similarly interested in that particularly, well, the exact same person as he was, um, I think he really wanted to tell that story, and I think sometimes when you want to tell a particular story, and I find this to be true when I'm writing an album or a script or whatever, until I get to tell a story the way that I really intended to tell it, it just keeps recycling itself in different ways in my art. It's just trying to escape and get out. And I'm like, okay, well, it can kind of be like this and that. And the longer I go, like, I think because the subject matter he was excited to talk about, you literally can't talk about it. I was actually told, I had a song I named Goddess after the book that I released, and it ended a little bit more suggestively, and I was told by my legal team to not do that. And I got nervous and changed it because they listed all of the people who had suggested that, who had not lived to see more days. And they said, we don't know if any of these stories have to do with it, but we would suggest you leave it open. And I was like, wow, okay, so I'm never going to give my full opinion on that. That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he really wanted to tell a story about this one girl in trouble, and he came to care about her so much. And I think that that narrative and that and however, I know some people argue like that it's not, it's not feminist, or it's not like a strong woman, a girl in trouble, she's a damsel in distress. And it's just like, well, no, the guy was trying to tell a story about a woman who was very in trouble. Like she literally got, whatever we say she got. But and then, I'm trying to think of sort of an inappropriate way to say it, but
No.
what's your, can I say?
Yeah, rock and roll.
Like, I think he got like art blue balls, and he really wanted to tell the story about this thing, and he was about to, and he was very excited about it, and then they were like, no. And I think that, like, you're like, oh my god, no. And so, then he made Twin Peaks, and you can see it throughout his stories that particular tale is interesting to him. And obviously, not to undermine his work, that he doesn't tell a bunch of different nuanced stories and beautiful things. They're all very different. I mean, Blue Velvet is very different from it. That's a whole different thing. But I think he has a heart for that made him feel a compassion for that. And whether or not certain people find that to be like making women seem helpless or whatever, I find it sweet, I guess.
Yeah, I see it. And it's interesting to the Women in Trouble, right? The subtitle of Inland Empire, and I don't know. I just hearing you say that in relation to that, it's just this echo. I hadn't seen, or just, I guess, the art blue balls, right? So I mean, I get these. I remembered certain expressions throughout this interview that have stuck out for me. I recognized. I heard one expression which was Proust in Versailles, and then I heard forced empathy, and recently I heard art blue balls. So these things are sticking in my head. So you got that down. That's the poet piece of it. I don't even have that written down at all. I'm just like, what the heck was that she just said? But no, there's and I think it's complicated, and it's not simple. And even when I try to not write about it, or just address it as like what type of issue it was, like women within Twin Peaks, in an article I had written, I realized, even when I introduced the idea of like, is it like, is it feminist or not feminist? It's not misogynist. It's depicting this violence, but it's also, it's it's tough. It's tough to navigate, and I think it's a great way to engage with the text. But the women are the heroes. Like when you take
Exactly.
like Naomi Watts, like her performance in like Mulholland Drive, like her being like, that's her first big role. And plus the subtext of her showing up in Hollywood in the splitting of identity. It's like fucking mind blowing. I'm like,
Yes.
those performances like almost like hurt my skin. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like watching that. But it's that powerful. And yeah, thanks for putting that thread in there about the main thing that keeps recurring in the role of I hadn't read or pulled that together, the role of that story of Marilyn Monroe, and like
I think,
I
yeah, I think he had a lot. I think after, I mean, I've read that book, and you do leave that book overwhelmed with a lot of compassion for her, and then you are very moved to write about it. It is something about the writer. I'm blanking on his name because they did actually a Netflix special on his book, which they changed the ending of because Netflix was scared. But
okay.
as am I. But so they the movie or the book Goddess is really interesting because you leave it and you feel extreme compassion for Marilyn Monroe, and you also feel it just so much of it is so relatable to your own life. There's so many, no matter who you are. I mean, everyone has this very elevated, unrelatable version of her where she is a female icon, orphan, drug addiction, and not all of us are living that life. That's quite unique.
Mm,
But um it's not that it's much more relatable than I think people who don't take a look want to know. It's just a broken childhood, trying to get by and getting some luck because she had, when you have a broken childhood, you work desperately, not just hard, but you're desperate. And so I think that desperation got her as far as that's why she was just like catapulted herself into like being an absolute, like, the star.
yeah.
And then also the one thing that makes me very frustrated is the pills she was taking at the time. Every other housewife was taking those pills. It wasn't unique to Marilyn Monroe. It wasn't a unique Marilyn Monroe story. It wasn't this tragic Marilyn Monroe end that's unique to Marilyn. I mean, that was their Xanax at the time. And we all take, everyone, I mean, I don't take Xanax, but I know lots of people who take Xanax and
Sure,
Ativan,
sure.
and no one's having, sensationalized stories. If someone takes a Xanax, I mean, no one's like, oh my God, like that person's in trouble. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, you have anxiety. I get it. So I think it's like when we look at the Bible and you don't read it in Hebrew, like it's different. Like, you're looking at the 50s, you didn't live then, and you're like, oh, Marilyn Monroe was a wild woman with her barbiturates. And it's like, well, no, she was just a regular woman who was going through a time trying to have a child and trying to find a man to give her a child. Like, we all, honestly, frankly, I get it. I'm in my 30s. I'm like, same. And it's a weird time. And I I'm on Klonopin, and that's my I maybe back then they would have put me on barbiturates. I don't know. And so
It's not so far removed, is what you're
it's not so
saying.
far removed. People
Yeah,
make it a big sensationalized,
yeah,
unique Marilyn Monroe thing, and it's just simply not. And so that I hate that she's like the face of barbiturates because everyone was taking them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so I think when you read that book, you realize just how much you felt like this woman so many times, men and women alike. The the things that you read in this, you're just like, God, same. And I think that it's one of the most, when you're telling a story in art and you're a director and you're writing a film, you're David Lynch, whatever, you're trying to find the universal and the particular. There's no better option story than that. Like, when you read that book, especially the universal and the particular in that is like the perfect ratio of everyone will watch this and relate to this and feel something. And that's the goal, right? And so um I think it makes perfect sense. And it obviously, like, I can see how the female characters developed, but the thing is that what he did, and I think maybe like lacking the context, it just becomes like the Stamsel story and is it anti-feminist. But what happened is he took the person that he was maybe a muse of his, and he let them win. And I think that was so exciting to him, you know, maybe not in Twin Peaks, but in some of his films. You know, the girl in trouble got to, you know, get herself out. And
Yeah.
and I think that's so cool because I think that that's what he wanted. That's what he wished. It's what we, you know, it's what we all wished, right? Like even like recently with Matthew Perry dying, I think everyone was so shocked and moved by that, whether they were big Friends fans or not. Most people kind of are. I I think we all knew he had these addictions, but he was getting better and he was helping people and he had this book and he
Yeah.
was doing
Yeah.
things to help people not have addictions. And no one was really expecting him to go at that point. We thought he was kind of on the mend. And it's just kind of like that thing where your culture is like rooting for this person, and when he died we were like, no, wait, no,
No, that's wrong. Like, yeah.
like that wasn't supposed to happen that way. He
That's
figured
how
it
I
out.
felt. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think from my 5th grade class of studying icons, the one of the main components of being an icon is people have to root for you. And can they root for you if there's nothing that you have opposition in your life with? And so if you just if it all came easy, there's not much to root for because you're okay. And so there's this like subtle balance of like, you know, this person came from shit and then they overcame it, but like they don't know that life, so that they might like self-destruct, and you're rooting for them. And that's like a very common recipe of like I think the studio system used to like very purposefully tell the stories that way of that didn't even exist. I think I read once that there was this girl who came from Texas and they changed it to like a farm and a nice house in Texas. They changed it to a farm in Alabama, didn't have any money, and now she lives in a penthouse, blah, blah, blah. And I think it was like the story was that she lived in like a nice house in Texas and then she got a decent house in LA. Like it wasn't a big story, but they totally changed the narrative that we're rooting for her. And we were rooting for her and she made it. And so, not only when you're making an icon as a actor, musician, whatever, when you're trying to make like a film and your protagonist, often you want them to have these qualities because you need the audience to relate to them and root for them as well.
Yeah.
And so I think David Lynch does that brilliantly, and that's one of the things about him. I don't know if anyone talks about it much, but he makes characters that you are just so attached to. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if anything bad happened to any of the characters on Twin Peaks when it did, you were just like, absolutely not. Like, you know,
You're yours.
you're
That's
rooting
my
for every
person.
one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe a redemption story for some of them. You don't know.
Except
Like
Leo.
he
Except
just,
Leo. Most everybody else except Leo.
yeah, except, oh yeah, no, he, and he's so good at that. He's so good at that. And I think he must have been obsessed with icons too, because it's such an interesting subject, because it's how our country became, that's our bread and butter is our entertainment industry. Well, I mean, that's what we're known for. We don't have cathedrals and Marie Antoinette or like whatever, you know, the history of other countries. We're a newer country, and we have some embarrassing histories. And one of our good ones is that we have Hollywood, and Hollywood is a big accomplishment for our country. So, growing up here, I think that's something that you kind of, when you go into it and you really, really care about being into it, you try to get to the bottom of the recipe of it, because there is one, and you can kind of see it repeated. And I think that's probably why potentially I seemed Lynchian before I was familiar in high school with Twin Peaks. Was that I was also very intrigued by the girl that was in trouble.
Yeah. Well, wow. Thanks for talking about that too. And there's so many different ways you were talking about Lynch. That's why it's fun to talk about that stuff and those great texts, because I'm always like a bit like, oh, I didn't quite see it. I didn't quite see that exactly. And uh, really just really enjoy that. I wanted to. Oh, uh, are you a Swiftie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I adore Taylor Swift. It's a large reoccurring theme
Oh, yeah.
uh, in the podcast.
Oh, great. Okay,
The
good.
the
Then
concert movie.
oh,
Ha-
I'm waiting to see it. I'm dying to see it. I I haven't I haven't been I need to see
okay,
it.
okay. I seen it twice. I saw two different groups, and it's towards 3 hours long. I'm not going to tell you the details, but I will just tell you certain things. The outfits are insanely beautiful, like how they're designed, and there's the set designs and things that you'll see. The one for folklore, I wanted to live in or find out a way I can cut it out for recapture it and live in it. And the thing is, in one piece, I won't tell you anymore. She just sings
Okay.
from like on top of the roof right there, and you're in that land. And I'm like, so I keep going there. I keep going to the theater, even though it's 1989 a
Oh,
pop.
I mean, I've been playing folklore all day in my office up until this podcast, so
That's my favorite, like top 10 albums. My favorite Taylor Swift album.
it's incredible.
I just adore it. I range a lot, but for me, like my big thing that I really enjoy is maybe goth, dark, doom metal, big metal guy.
Yeah.
But there's a doom in folklore
Oh,
that just like it's the fog of that album.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I just started re-listening to it again, and I always have like a new favorite when I come back. I was on Cardigan forever, and now I'm like, wait, Mirrorball is such a fucking good song. And
I adore Mirrorball. I have a hoodie which the with the Mirrorball
really,
lyrics. Yeah,
oh,
I
that's
adore
amazing.
Mirrorball and Seven.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
August.
Um,
I'll keep going.
no, Mirrorball. I've been listening to it so much lately. When I find a song I really like, I guess kind of like David does his movies. I want to get to the bottom of it.
Yep,
I want to
absolutely.
figure out what happened and how it happened, and I like just listen to it over and over and over. And each time I listen, I'm like, oh, I kind of see why like she went from that lyric to that lyric. Oh, okay, that's really clever. And I love I love people hate that about me because I'll just keep listening to the same song again and again like a psychopath. And people are like, please put something else on, and I'm like, I haven't figured it out yet.
I on this, and so I'll say that I admitted this on the show before. It's not admitting because like this, but I've told this on the show before. And we probably share this. Liking I would say an album or a song, but liking an album so much that what is the loop of the song and how often are we playing it. But
Yeah,
and it was right when I wasn't into the early catalog of Taylor. Like it's like 1989 and post 1989.
I get
But when
that.
I you did the same thing, I
Yeah.
listened to 1989 every single day at least once for 18 months.
Oh, honestly, same. I mean, I You Belong With Me wasn't so like when I was younger, that wasn't the style of music that I listened to, but I couldn't help but admit that that was a perfect song.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
Just like writing wise, pop
Yeah.
wise, like she won with that song. That's a perfect song. So even though I'd be listening to like the Shins and whatever I was listening to back in that era, You Belong With Me would sneak in and I'd just be like yelling at it in my car, and all of my like indie friends were like, "Ooh, what are you doing?" And I was like, it's a good song, you guys.
Love
And
it.
I write songs and I care, and But then when 1989 came around, I was just like, okay, honestly, I don't care what anyone says. You can all. And then by now, I think culture has just accepted that she's just, I don't know why. There was a lot of resistance.
A long time, and it's so
People were
weird.
like, no, but I think, and that must have been so hard. Like, just that she kept having to like prove herself, even though she was just writing this brilliant music for us.
I agree.
But she eventually we all just kind of put our guns down and we were like, listen, you're an incredible songwriter. Like I think now the average person on the street, if you ask if they like Taylor Swift, they're like, yeah. She's great.
Yeah.
She's really great.
Yeah, I like to. Yeah, no, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I just was gonna say, I think now people are over it, and I'm glad because she's a gift.
Yeah, I find I've invited Taylor 5 different times, and it's perseverance. It's over time. But no, I really enjoyed the concert film, and really enjoyed that music. What I wanted to ask you, Gloom, was about just about you're an artist and a creator and a performer. Um, what I wanted to ask is what do you think? What are you trying to do when you're making art? What is art? Are you trying to achieve a certain end in creating art, or is it more the process and just how you breathe?
It never ends, but I think that without it, we would be so alone. Um, because I think, like, well, Taylor Swift, for instance, there are certain feelings that I'll have, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you need to like get over that. And then she'll have a whole anthem about it, and I'm like, okay, well, it seems like a fair feeling. And I think that when you're making art, I guess other than bottling a feeling is a really cheesy way to say it, but and also the back to the universal and the particular, you're trying to tell your story, and you're telling it in a way that I personally, for me, I just like, I hope that, and I know that with the way that human nature is, that likely someone else has felt the same, and there's a catharsis to releasing it myself, kind of like I've let that, once I've penned it down and I've recorded it and I've sang it a bunch of times on tour, it's kind of like I've let it go and set it free. And then also what I'll find, to know that like I accomplished the task, is then I'm selling, I'm by the merch booth and I have people coming in and they, one after one, like, oh, I've been through that and I've never had a song that's like, that said it like that or addressed it like that. And that's really like, I think at the end of the day, that's like when you realize like that's why I did it. Like, and you don't know till you get that feeling and you see that understanding in that person's eyes, that like you can see that they want to like come let you know that they feel less alone. And to me, that's probably the most motivating and inspiring thing, because I spent so much of my childhood, Marilyn Monroe's, if you read about hers, I spent so much of my childhood alone. I was homeschooled. I did child acting, but that isn't, it's not very much socializing. I would go on AOL Instant Messenger on recess breaks and chat with people I kind of knew from like theater shows I was in. I had pets. I had a lot of pets because I was very lonely. And then my mom was very complicated, and so complicated that I could not ask of her anything if I was not feeling whole, like where you're like, keep me company or something like that.
Yeah.
And then my dad, he was there for me quite a lot, but he also had to, he was very concerned about my mom. So I was often, kind of just, self-soothing or like just playing with toys and by myself in my room. And then, that turns into junior high, it turns into high school, and you've developed kind of a pattern, and you're not sure why you keep running into this feeling of loneliness, and you watch The Wizard of Oz and you're like, oh, I get what they were saying there with the and you have an existential crisis in your late teens about some kids movie from 1938 and Dorothy, and there's this universal thing. And no matter, Taylor Swift is a great example that you brought her up, because she's the most famous, she's now, one of the most famous people on this planet. And I can still tell in her interviews and whatnot. And I noticed when she was younger, she had this, and everyone says, oh, she'll grow out of it. And I always tell people, no, you don't grow out of that. When it hits at a specific age, you're going to feel that way. And that's, with Matthew Perry, but she has this kind of imposter syndrome. She feels kind of like she's not a cool kid. She feels like she definitely feels lonely.
Yeah.
And you can still see it in interviews. She's now she's been proclaimed a billionaire. This tour was massively successful. She knows she fucking killed it. And then when you still talk to her, you can still see that, it's just you can't take the heat that out of a person. And some people just, you see other artists and they seem really full of themselves, and I would argue that they likely were probably their mom's favorite child and pretty full of themselves as a kid too. And then they make very interesting, catchy songs, but they don't make the art that you're talking about. And I just think we're all trying to connect, and we're all trying to feel part of something. And so often we don't. And so, especially when we have unique problems, and so when you find something that says something that you feel that you'd never heard said out loud before, other than in your own head, it's a miracle. And you maybe you're like, I might be fixed at least for the day, and that's powerful, because I don't know any benzo or SSRI that can do that. And
Right.
So I think I parted ways with my old label, and I don't love how things went, but they did have a saying that was, music is medicine. And I think that's absolutely true. And I think film is the same way. And I think, I don't know what we would do without it. Everyone's created art since before we had movies and before we had recordings. People needed to paint. They needed to write books. They needed to, we still write books, but we still paint. But before we had these mediums of audio and film, I mean, it's just been the human way of coping with. I mean, being a human's kind of weird and fucked up, and we're not sure why we're doing it. And we got dropped here, and we're like, whoa. Those memes, I didn't ask to be born. You're like, when things happen, you're like, is there an exit?
Oh, there was nothing. Now there's something, and here it all is in front of me.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And so you just are trying to figure out how to navigate your way through life. And sometimes you don't know how to fucking navigate something, and you just, you make something about it, and you move on. And then, sometimes it's just for you, and sometimes it benefits a whole fucking bunch of people. And I don't think one is less or more valid, but I think it's really exciting when you can make people feel less alone, because it's so weird. We're all here, but we're all so separate. And
well, I really, and on the art bit too, it just in doing the show, in the, I'm really excited to talk to you, you're interested but I just really adore your music, and I just it's a kind of a weird, because I don't know you, we haven't met, but just I liked everything you were attempting. Like I liked it all. And then on the music, for me, I have a like I'm a sucker for female song, but also this spacey moodiness and wandering and mystery. It's just like a whole mood in tone. And so I really love that. And also your photos and your visuals, like, that are just striking and just like it's cool. It's like exciting to be around, and it's exciting to be able to talk to you. And then you add the Lynch stuff in, and then all the other Marilyn Monroe, and like. So I just wanted to tell you, I find it such a great thing to be able to uh connect with your creative mind. And one other point too is, there's something that maybe as you're telling me about, like, of asking all those questions and asking the additional things, and the fact that I can see that you're hustling, and I just root for you, because I'm like, fucking, you win, seriously. And that's that. It's just, you're the artist, and hit it, go after it. And so I'm a fan, Gloom.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Where do listeners find those things we've been talking about? Your things, your art and music and visuals.
My art is on generally any listening platform, iTunes, Spotify, etc. My albums are The Internet and Main Character, and I have a double-sided single, Rosalind and Goddess, that is based on what we were talking about tonight. And I will be releasing more at the top of the year. So you can find my music videos on the Italians Do It Better YouTube channel, and you'll find my new music videos on the GLÜME channel next year.
So exciting to hear about. I have a report that's useful, and I'd sent you a quick message. I was going around in Portland, Oregon, and some folks in the car with me. I was playing your music, and they all are just suckers for it, and they were listening, and we were blasting, and we were going by the Portland Erotic Ball that's at the McMiniman Square. It's like the longest running erotic ball there. And I was like, man, it's like, I just made you like 3 fans, and we're freaking rolling down Portland past the erotic ball. I said, I think Gloom would like this. She doesn't even know I'm doing this right now.
Dude, I love it. I love that.
It's like we gotta roll in the car with the hood open sometime, and
That's amazing. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's great to hear where you can find to find your stuff. It's just out of courtesy here. We've been talking for a while. Out of courtesy, we got to end the conversation and hopefully talk again. I want to be respectful, although it's a bit later when we're recording, and from what I hear in LA, you all go forever. So I don't know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, this is normal.
Only because I just thought of it, and one thing popped into my head before I leave you. Do you obsess about the Manson family?
Absolutely.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do as well. I've done some I've done a photo art piece that's just creepy, and what's creepy about it is the photos of the Manson gals. But what's so cool about it, what I loved it, is like, I'm like, I don't believe I made this weird ass thing. I was so excited by seeing it. I'm like, I could see why I'm like this weird fantasy fetishization, evil Manson women. Like, I could see that, but after the 20 photos in the red frame after I done, I'm like, I don't do art like this normally.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. I I was so excited when I was watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when we got to
Yeah.
that part, and I was like, oh my god. You don't
Yeah.
see it in like a film like that much. You're like, oh, I wasn't expecting. I guess I don't know why I wasn't expecting it, but I was just like, oh, cool.
All right. Well, here, listeners, because they're gonna respect Gloom's time. I'm gonna ask Gloom. Would you? We should do either an Insta live or some sort of idea of discussing just Manson family stuff for our own
Absolutely.
enjoyment, and any sort of ancillary enjoyment that the listeners may get from it. I think you and I would be great to. Revisit the larger question of the most bizarre story in the killer universe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I have my
Uh,
Sharon Tate book over there. Yeah, no, I'm ready.
all right. One final serial killer thing, and I'm really going to let you go. When I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I lived 6 blocks from Dahmer's apartments.
Oh my god.
Creepy town area. I have a photo. I did a study. One of the few art little courses I did. It was called The Spirit of Place, and it was basically. Here's how I'll sum it up. What are the ghosts of where you are? Like, what are the ghosts like in creating the art? And what I had was, I went to North Milwaukee where the Dahmer just space. Well, that apartment building had been destroyed, but what you have is like just an open industrial field. In Milwaukee being a cold industrial city, it was November and it's black and white, and I was so fascinated because the absence of
Yeah.
the building and the starkness, and I actually, like, I just worked with that photo because I'm like, I don't know, it's just so enthralling. So yeah, that was just 5 blocks away from when I went to school studying philosophy at
That's
Marquette
crazy.
University. Yeah, right down the street. So, how did I get us onto serial killers? Well, I'm not sure.
I don't know, but we could go on ghosts too. So that, yeah, it's a whole.
Drop on ghosts quite a bit. Okay, I am going to let you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I hope this has been enjoyable. I want to tell you, it's like a really deep life pleasure to meet you and to chat with you, Gloom.
Thank you so much for having me.
You said, "Oh hail, the Queen of L.A." She can barely balance, but look at the way she knows pain is beautiful.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.
And listeners, to stay connected with us and our guests, visit somethingratherthannothing.com. Join our mailing list for exclusive updates and access to guest-created art. If you enjoyed this episode or any episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review on your podcast platform. People really read that shit. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our community across the planet. This is a global show, and we like to give a shout out to our many listeners across the world, including many listeners in Canada, Spain, Germany, UK, Argentina, Brazil, India, Thailand, and so many more places. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Something Rather Than Nothing Podcast for behind the scenes content. And the best way to help the show is to tell your friends about us. If you love it, they'll love it too. Tell your friends who love it. We love you. This is Something Rather Than Nothing Podcast.